I am trying to see different options, different things that can optimize a little bit everything that I am handling for my teams and that I can help to my guys also with AI. I am right now a leader of global teams. I work with people from different countries and I really enjoy that. I really like to meet people from different cultures and then keep learning a lot from different people around the world. And I am also an international conference speaker. Okay, so let's start with the topic itself. So, manual versus automation, right? Mainly, this is a question that I used to have a lot now that I am in a leadership position. But when I was also working as initially I started as manual tester, then I moved to automation. So I remember clearly the question when we were moving to automation is what are we going to do? Maybe 10 years ago, we had an idea on having this some manual testers learning how to automate and doing the automation stuff. Then at some point, we had these two different roles for the same part, right? Because we are all QAs, we are all trying to ensure the quality of our products, but the roles were completely different. From one side, the manual testers, and as I put in the slide, this is an ongoing story. Everybody's always discussing, right, on these different roles. So from one side, the manual testers has like a great knowledge, in the business inside, understanding requirements, following up processes, but they don't feel really comfortable doing code or working with automation. On the other hand, we had automation engineers who, in general, we can have two things. Maybe I'm going to stop here. Whenever you were a manual tester, and maybe if you started 20 years ago, you will understand this. If you are kind of new on the area, you will think that I like to do manual testing. I'm good doing manual testing, but I don't like to code, right? So some people is prepared on manual testing, and another group of people is prepared in automation, right? But in the past, some people that used to be senior QA, they used to jump to start doing automation, right? But they were kind of exceptions. In general, I would say we had this clear separation in roles where the automation engineers are great with frameworks. They enjoy a lot doing code. But the problem is that the automation engineers are less engaged with the manual QA scope, right? I think it's not something new when I say that I had two people. I had a manual tester. And if I ask any documentation, any information about the progress on the regression or anything about the change on the business requirements or whatever that is needed for the feature, the manual testers are great on it. They will jump on it immediately and they really enjoy doing it. And on the other hand, the automation engineers, they love to, investigate about new tools, investigate about new code, new plugins, new libraries, doing something that is going to optimize what they have. But when I need to have my manual testers doing automation, it's a problem because they don't like it and they don't want it, right? And they say, why I had to do this if I am a manual tester? And on the other hand, if I put my automation guys doing the testing, it's going to be a problem too because they don't enjoy the tedious task from QA, right? So this is an ongoing story. Anytime that I go to a conference or that I'm talking with somebody who's starting their careers or somebody that is, trying to get an advice on how they can change their role or which other opportunities they can take, the conversation is around these two roles. But now that we have, if we go back 1 second, for example, in the past or before AI, we had these separated roles, but really separated inside QA, right? And it was painful. I'm going to talk as a leader, but also, talking with my people, it was painful for both sides. On the manual side, whenever we put trainings to do code, it was, we were not able to reach. I will not say with all the people, but with most of my manual testers, I was not able to reach what I wanted to reach in terms of the training or the contribution on the automation side. And for automations, whenever they took the trainings on the product, on the test cases, on reporting the bugs, etc., or taking the corner cases, or I don't know, going deeper with the testing itself, it was a problem. They used to miss some bugs. They used to I don't know, report the bugs in a different way compared with the manual testers. The manual tester was always kind of helping the automation, right? So it was painful, even if you put on place training, even if you try to follow up closely, or maybe many of you also saw that it was painful and it was hard for some people to start doing this. But I would say that right now, or maybe it's not new, right? Maybe 2 years ago, whenever we suddenly have AI or the Gen AI at some point available for everybody, suddenly I start looking that, this manual and automation has finally like a bridge, because using AI, we can actually somehow reduce this gap. And I saw that we were doing a lot of trials in the past with this kind of trainings, right? And maybe many of you did it also, that, for example, like taking some courses or trying to learn automation on your own because your company is requesting for this, right? But now with AI, we had this possibility, because we can actually, if you think about that, when we had the manual testers trying to do automation, something that I saw a lot with my people, it was first of all the judgment, right? Because I recall one case specifically that one of my automation guys, he was training this QA, this manual tester on the team. And, the manual tester was doing some questions that, for example, for the automation, they were so obvious questions, right? And the way to answer was not the best, or was like, yeah, but this is kind of obvious. And whenever you had this kind of conversations, or they have this kind of conversations, the person who doesn't know is going to try to not ask again, right? I'm not going to say if it's good or bad the way that any automation people is answering, but I would say that I heard a lot of these kind of situations, like, I don't want to ask too much because I don't know, and I am looking on internet and it's not so clear for me, etc., right? But right now, having AI, you had the possibility to ask any question. Nothing, for me, never a question is a dumb question, right? But for some people, even say it, or the way that the other people is answering it is going to make you feel that, maybe you shouldn't ask that question at some point, right? And the same on the other side, right? Whenever the automation guys were kind of trying to understand something and they were asking some kind of basic question about what they understood or not about the requirement, and the people in the manual testers are like, but this is obvious, right? If you understood the requirements, you should know that these are kind of the happy path or the main cases for this testing. But now with AI, we finally can, close that gap and use this as a bridge. And I am constantly talking about the role as a hybrid QA. And I know that there is a lot of conversations around this topic, because in general, I would say, if you think about the companies and the roles, whenever you are trying to get a new position in a new company, you will see that, okay, the position is, let's say, a senior automation. You go to the interview and you need to know everything about QA. Okay, you need to know the process, you need to know how to write the test cases properly, how to report the bug when you are finding corner cases, which kind of different types of testing you are doing, etc., 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 right? And the same, and a senior QA, right? If you had all of this knowledge, then you need to know also how to code, how to create a framework, how you can actually change, something, let's say this part is flaky, how you can make it more stable, which kind of things you need to change to make the code better, which kind of code standards you are following, are you doing code reviews, why, for example, this is not a good code, give your feedback, something technical. And the reason why this is happening, sorry, is because the company's needs the hybrid QA finally. And I would say 10 or 12 years ago, they were already looking for these positions. I remember clearly when we were preparing at some point, when I started being an automation, I remember they wanted to have somebody like mid or senior QA who can jump to start doing automation. So they wanted this hybrid, but they couldn't because of the demands on the projects. In general, we were doing even or pure automation or pure manual testing. So that's when we divided the roles. And now everybody's looking to go back to that idea on having the hybrid QA. And the reason why is because, you know, when you have manual and automation, you need to have two people, which is gonna increase the size of the team first, but it means that it's gonna increase the budget for that team, right? The hybrid QAs are right now on demand because we need to have somebody who is able to test, but is able to automate and is able to understand which kind of things are important to be automated. I would say in these initial 2 points in reducing the skill gaps and meeting the demands, whenever you are a QA, for example, without doing automation, you will need more time for your regressions, right? Your time to go or to release, to go to production or release something is going to be extended because there is a lot of things that you need to go and check by yourself. On the other hand, if you only know how to automate, but you don't know what is important, why something is critical, that maybe you're automating the whole screen, you're giving like a whole view of everything, but you're not actually bringing value. And remember that at some point, we lost the real idea on having automation, which is, having faster releases, but has a good coverage and also bringing value to the team, which is, reducing the time on going to production, but making sure that it's working, right? At some point, I even remember one case when one of my teams were actually running every single step that the automation execution was doing. And when I asked why, they say because they don't trust on the automation stuff. And why they didn't trust? Because somebody else was doing it. They didn't know exactly how to code and review that code. And they discovered that some of those things that were passed in automation, they were actually having some bugs, which is not good, of course. We need somebody to follow up on that. But these kind of things can happen when you had this role divided. But if you are the person who is testing and you are the person who understands automation and is able to automate, you will be making sure that you are automating, which is important and which is actually bringing value, and which, for example, if something fails, you can stop the release. Okay, then cost and resource efficiency, because reducing cost while increasing team's flexibility, it's important for the company itself, right? In general, we are always thinking in our professional growth, and of course that's something obvious. Like everybody wants to think about their own personal benefits and what they are looking for their careers. But remember that for the companies, because I received this question, why, if I am QA or manual tester, I need to do automation? And I would say it's because the companies are requesting this. Because if you think about the budget, instead of paying one QA and one automation and having like a line, a gap between both, right? Which represents that maybe automation is not doing something really valuable, and maybe QA is overloaded with the task because it's repeating the same task because they don't trust on these results. Instead of having this, like paying to two people, having two different resources, investing more time, and then reducing this to a single person, right? Having a hybrid QA is going to be more efficient for the team, considering that the same person is going to understand which is most valuable for the team, and also it's one person. And maybe somebody's going to say, okay, but then why they are not paying double for this person, right? Which is a common question that I also receive. And the reason is because we are not expecting to have the same amount of things, right? Because if the person is going to the manual tester is going to automate, in that time whenever this person is automating, it's not covering something else, which is happening when it's doing some only manual, right? So there is some kind of flexibility that you can have, understanding which kind of things will go faster, which kind of things will be covered in a better way, which other things will not be automated by now. There is a lot of things. There are no formula or something specific to define this. And then, of course, adaptability, because, if you are doing this hybrid QA, you had like a full role, right? Because you understand the framework, the automation framework, but you also understand the product, and you know exactly which are the pain points for it, which is or which are the main test cases, or the most important test cases to be covered, to make sure they are passing, etc. Right? So this is some kind of why this hybrid QA is something that we really want. But then let's talk a little bit about the role of AI, right? Many people, and I think by now, maybe even more, I remember at some point, whenever we were starting with this conversation, many people were saying, oh, now, AI is going to replace all the QAs. We don't need QAs anymore. And I remember a lot of people was even asking me, right, or making jokes like, you are dealing with the enemy, whenever I was, investing a lot of my time understanding AI and see how we can actually optimize something. So I would say, and I think many people already know this, but if you had any doubt about this, AI is here to support you, right? It's kind of something to give you superpower, but it's not going to replace you. And I heard also maybe Jonathan Wright say this in a conference also, that maybe it's not going to replace you, right? But it's going to, if you're going to be replaced, you're going to be replaced with a person who knows how to use AI, all right? Because if you don't know how to use AI, you are losing something that can help you a lot on doing some stuff that maybe are taking more of your time, and that can help you in optimizing, everything that you're doing, if you really think about which kind of things you can use AI. So just to point a couple of points here. For example, AI can support you on getting a faster understanding of requirements, of frameworks and code. Sometimes and maybe you saw this, because I lived this with this when I was a tester and an automation, that we were at the feature acceptance meeting with the stakeholders, and then we realized that business wanted something. The PO represented the business requirement was represented by the PO in some other way. The developer understood something else. And whenever we were testing kind of a pieces of it, but then we were not delivering exactly what they want, right? Because it's kind of, sometimes it's kind of subjective, right? The understanding of something. And right now you can have like a guidance with AI, right? You can say, okay, I had this requirement, I understand this. What do you understand for this? And then you can get some ideas, and then you can go and ask some questions and say to the business or the PO, depending on the way that your team is working, you can say, hey, are we sure that we want to have this, or you're expecting to have this, right? You can have more clarity, because sometimes when you read it, when you understand, and will depends on the previous knowledge that you can have for something similar, on how do you see this, right? But when you're using AI, there are nothing in there that can kind of change the way that you're understanding something. It's just gonna give you what they understand according to probability, right? And then you can see if it can help or not. The same for frameworks and for code. You can easily, right now with the use of the co-pilots, or even right now, even better with the use right now, I was investigating a lot about the agents, and you can even use the agents to understand your code, to fix some errors, to do a lot of stuff, right? So you can use that to support you, as I said before, to give you some kind of superpowers. You can have also smarter generation of test cases without saying that our test cases are not smart, right? But what I'm trying to say is that instead of just trying to rethink about what else can I cover, you can instantly have like a list of the things that you can cover, right? You can have a help on it. Don't take it as a replacement. I would say AI will never think as a human because it's learning from whatever the humans are doing, right? But it can help you a lot on all the other stuff that you already know and you had in some place of your head, right? And of course, the code snippets and the test data. When you need to generate the data, I don't know you, but I am in the past, I was working a lot with performance, for example. And you know that performance is really important. One of the main points for performance is test data, right? Because depending on the data that you're using, you can have different behavior. And generating this data sometimes is painful depending on the conditions of your product. But now with AI, it's really easy to do it if you are in that position, for example. Then easier collaboration between manual and automation testers because sometimes you can actually share all the stuff that you have. You can have like a single source of truth and you can keep using it. You can there is a lot of tools that can give you the possibility on sharing some specific knowledge or sharing some specific stuff that you can use between the teams or between the roles, which I would say I would prefer to say QAs, right, instead of manual or automation, but it's going to help a lot. So to helping manual testers to get closer to automation, probably everybody knows about that. And I would say most of my guys were using different of these tools like ChatGPT, Cloud, Gemini, or any other tool that you would like. I would say, for example, my manual testers started first of all with ChatGPT, and then they moved to Copilot, right? But the automations instantly were using Copilot, right? And the idea is because, first of all, and I think everybody knows about these points, is because you can get a good guidance if you know how to ask, if you know how to give the context. But mainly what I say before, it's with no judgment, right? You can ask anything that could be considered to anybody else like a dumb question, but and you are not sure about asking this to a team or to a person, but to a tool you can always ask, and you can ask again and again and again, and it's not going to be a problem. I recall whenever some manual tester is going to ask the same question to an automation guy, they were like, hey, this guy is not paying attention, we are teaching this, or this pattern need to be followed, it's not done in that way. There are some judgment even if you don't want it, even if you try to take care of your teams and try to create a self, like a safe environment or work environment. There are always comments, right? But with these tools you have no judgment. You can keep growing, you can try to take as much as you can get ideas, you can understand, I had this code, I don't know what this code is doing, and it's going to give you some insights. It's not perfect, definitely it's not perfect. You can use it to keep learning, yes, right? Because you shouldn't take it as the source of truth all the time, but it's going to give you a lot of help. In the past, whenever I had a question about automation or I had an issue with some framework, with some test case or something, I used to go to Google and I used to search for, for different pages when I was getting the code and trying and getting the code and trying. So it's exactly the same, right? But it's something more near to the solution whenever you're using these tools. And also, as I said before, to help you with test data or troubleshoot or something. But on the other hand, because it's not just that the manual testers need help with automation. On the other hand, I would say the automation engineers need help with QA, because that's something that I saw, and I and I saw that it's really a problem because my guys, I don't know if I am the only one, I'm sure I'm not, but my guys are having like a close relationship with me. I really like to work with a lot of one-on-ones, following the progress, helping them in everything that I can. So they are really open and they are like, I don't like to test. I don't like to write these test cases. I don't like to do the documentation. I hate to do this, this, and this. And I'm like, okay, I understand you don't like it, but it's part of the role. So we had to do it. And with AI, we can get some help. So I talked already about this in a previous presentation. There are a lot of tools right now, guys, and it's just a matter of going and trying. So, for example, this is for Checky AI. This is like a plugin for a browser that you can use. And whenever you want to see, for example, the test cases that can be generated, you can just install the plugin, you can run it, and test cases are going to be generated from different agents into that page. Then, for example, one other point from my automation guys is that they are doing, the basic test, right? They are covering the CRUD for an API, for example, or specific cases. And then how can I increase the coverage for this? How can I know that I'm not missing something that is maybe obvious for a QA? So, for example, with this GitHub Copilot, I just put a screenshot there. You can easily go and having your test cases. You already added your test cases, and you can say, hey, I need to have like a more coverage for this. Give me, I don't know, like 10 more test cases to increase the coverage for my current test cases, right? So you put, as you can see here, you put the page that you're using, to test it, and then it's going to generate the different cases, right? So for example, it was not considered to create a booking with invalid data, with a non-existent booking, I don't know, depending on the case, right? So there is always a lot of tools. As I said, Copilot is not only just for code, but it can help you with unit tests or also with other tests in terms of the code. It's going to be great. So it's something that anybody can use. And last but not least, play around with AI agents is my advice right now. So, for example, this is just a screenshot about Langflow. Right now, there is a lot of other cases that you can try. But when I started interacting with Langflow, for example, and this is not publicity, okay, for any tool, but this is something that in the first, whenever I heard about the AI agents, I really wanted to understand how they work, which kind of things they do, and I do like Python, for example, but I wanted to see something that maybe at the beginning I shouldn't use only code, because whenever I want to share this with some of my guys, maybe they don't know how to use Python, or they will not feel good about it, and they will think that they need to still learn something before understanding the concept, right? So, for example, Langflow is kind of visual. The code base is Python, of course, but you can easily drag, these different components, and you can create a flow, and you can create something for you, right? You can have a rack database. They work with Astra, for example. You can put your data there, in your database. According to something that you want to play around with it, right? You want to put some contextual information, and you want to have agents that can, I don't know, like generate some test and can generate something for you depending on what you need. So my suggestion is that you can play around with AI agents. You can try it, right? Because this is not the only option, but maybe this is going to give you an idea on how these different components will play with each other. Which kind of inputs can I put? How can I create a chatbot which is going to understand my context only, and is going to go to what I gave for my data, and then how it's going to respond. You can also give access to different things like code repositories or anything. Of course, you need to try it first and see how much permission do you want to give to an agent. But it's something that is going to be really helpful to everybody. And just to finish my presentation as a conclusion, first of all, look at your own workflow, right? Never consider something that, oh, because Karime or somebody else say we need to use this here, right? Always consider your own context and understanding the different things that you want to optimize, right? Identify the repetitive, time consuming or low impact tasks that AI can help, right? So it's going to be different for everybody, but you know your context and you know where you can actually use it. Commit to learning is something that we had to do. Right now, I think we had no excuse because there is too much information on internet and there are too many tools right now. Many of them are for free or they have a free version. You can explore, you can try, you can stay curious. That's a part of QAs, right? So let's take advantage of that skills that we have by default being a QA and experiment and explore. Don't wait something to be perfect for your case. Start small, do a POC, try something, and start understanding more and getting more better results for you. Then I'm going to finish saying that QA is not going away if somebody has adapt about it, and it's becoming smarter, right? The key is to adapt and lead the change with the help of AI, because right now we can do amazing things that maybe in the past we didn't have the possibility to do it. So with that, if you had any questions, I am here to answer that. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening my presentation.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Karime, for the session. I can see a lot of questions which are there. What I'll do is I'll pick the questions on a upvote basis. Folks, I'll request everyone to just go through all the questions and we can pick the questions one by one. So the first question which is there, yeah, I hope everyone is able to see that. Manual automation, now Gen AI. How do we support ourselves getting this with 5 years of experience where there is a breach? How to scale up smartly and multiple automations with AI? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, can you repeat it, please? I cannot see that.
Oh, you're not able to, folks. Are you able to see the question on the stream?
Okay, now I can see it.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just read it out. Not an issue. The question is manual automation now Gen AI. How do we support ourselves getting into this with 5 years of experience where there is a breach, and how to skill up smartly with multiple automation with AI?
Okay, now I got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, I would say this is going to continue evolving. Okay, so I would say whatever it's useful for us right now, maybe it's going to change in the future. But that's not the reason to not try to stay on trend right now, right? Because it's true that, for example, I was using a lot, or I'm trying to understand a lot about the LLMs. A configuration, how to use different LLMs, how this actually works, how the algorithms are working. I was studying a lot about that point, and suddenly 1 month later, when I finally understand and I had an idea on my head, then suddenly we had the agents already, right? But the good thing is that agents are going to be using LLMs somehow. And then if I already understand everything about the LLMs and what are the difference and which one is better for what, then it's going to
Yeah.
be easier for me to put this in an agent, right? So
Yeah.
thinking on 5 years from now, for example, I think it's too much. Maybe the things will change a lot, but keep your mind open to use whatever you're doing right now. I'm sure it's going to be used later, and you're going to be one step ahead if you had that knowledge already.
Yeah. That's amazing. The next question is, we get this question a lot. In the future, will the manual testing jobs count decrease?
And as I said, I don't think we will have only manual itself at some point. I think we'll need a person who can do manual or can have the skills for manual testing and can explore different options that a machine cannot do. right? But you will need to have these skills, right? You shouldn't do everything on your own or taking a lot of time to do something manual, but you need to think about the different scenarios. So I would
Mm.
say, and many people is supporting this also on the internet, that the manual tester is even more important right now, but with the usage of the correct tools.
Awesome. Next question. Just a second. I think this question is like we have taken up this question. I'll pick the next question, which is how to train. Yeah, how to train to be hybrid, both manual and automation tester.
Okay, yeah, as I said before, it depends on your context. But you need to have support inside the team, first of all, right? You need to have like a basic understanding on how the framework is going to work. Let's consider that you are in a team when you had manual and automation. Okay. So if you had that situation, then you can take the automation people giving some kind of insights about the basic usage or how it's structured in terms of how we want to have, the code standards and everything that you will need to know to train if you were using, let's say, ChatGPT, yeah, you will need to give these directions, right? You need to say, okay, I had the framework, or if you're using Copilot also, right? You can install your ID, you can put there the conditions for your code, and then you will be able to have more velocity with the automation stuff, having the basic knowledge. Now, if in the other side you are a manual tester and you're not in the team when you had automation, you need to start investing, in your own time, like taking some courses for having some frameworks and automation and start adding some test cases and doing some POCs for your own. That's going to be the best way to do it.
Perfect. Thanks. Thanks a lot, Karime, for the session. What I'll do is just a second. Awesome. Folks, I know there are a lot of really good questions. Shanawaz, your question is also amazing. But because of the timing, I'll have to stop the session right now. Next, just a second. We'll take a quick break, okay, for 5 minutes, and then we'll be back. Yeah, once again, Karime, thanks a lot for taking our time for answering all the questions. I know there are a lot of other questions also, but folks, please post these questions on Discord. I'm pretty sure all the members will be there who will help you out. And do connect with Karime, okay? I think Mahesh
Yeah,
Vaya,
yeah. hmm You
share
can connect with
your
me on emails.
yeah, LinkedIn ID. He has shared it once again. I'll request everyone to go and follow, connect with Karime and ask all of your question. Karime, thanks a lot once again. It was great session and thanks a lot for answering all the questions.
Thank
See you
you.
soon.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Yeah, yeah, bye. Perfect. Really liking your questions, folks, and the whole discussion which you folks are having here in the chat. We'll see you in the next 5 minutes, folks. Next, the topic of the next session is parallel testing redefined, the browser polling method, and the session will be taken by Pooja. So see you soon. Yeah.